Hey, Twisted people, it's your Twisted girl here, Chauncey K. Robinson, aka Twisted Woman CKR. I am doing a live stream review spoiler discussion of Y: The Last Man, episode 6 and 7, because I have to catch up a little bit because I didn't do a recap last episode. I kind of want to just talk about the overall, story plot line that we're getting with this show and the characters. I'm curious. Let me know in the replay, and for those of you joining me in the live chat, it's always appreciated. But let me know in the comment section, how are you liking this season so far? I'm curious because I'm kind of 50-50 with this show thus far for a number of reasons, which I'll get into. So I'm curious what y'all are feeling when it comes to this show thus far. What are you liking about the show? What are you not liking about the show? I'm curious about what that is. So let me know in the comment section. What do you think the show could do better? I'm curious about that. So I want to kind of talk about my overall thoughts about the direction of the show thus far. Some specific things that happened in the show, and what may be happening in the future when it comes to this. So let's jump right into it. So overall, my thoughts about Y: The Last Man is I still think it has so much great potential. I think it's realizing that potential to a certain degree, but I do think it's a bit heavy-handed on how dreary it is. And I think I said this in the previous live streams. I was saying this is a dreary show. And which, let me know also in the comment section if you've read the comic books, because for those who don't know, this show is based off of the comic book series, Y: The Last Man, which went on for some years and even ended. It's not even in, it finished. And from my understanding, I only read a couple of comics from it. It was one of those things that when I was in the comic book store, I was looking at other stuff, but I would see Y: The Last Man there, and I would see the black girl who is Agent 355 in this one. But I would always see the black girl, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, here's a comic book that has a main girl who's black. Oh my gosh, I have to watch this. So I would check it out. And there always seemed to be something fun going on there, a little bit of, comedy and a little bit of, action, but also kind of questioning situations and the situation they found themselves in. I think this show does do a good job in taking on the gravity of the situation, but maybe a little too well of how it takes on the gravity of this situation and how heavy it always feels. And because of that, right now, I'm still giving this season pretty much a B-. I haven't seen anything that has significantly happened that's made me be like, whoa, yeah, in terms of a show. And I'll be honest, it's not something where when it comes on weekly that I'm super excited about watching all the time. I'm kind of like, okay, I got to sit through the next episode of Y: Last Man. That's kind of how I've been feeling about it, because it is, I'm not going to say it's a downer kind of show, but it is a kind of show where it's like, yeah, this is heavy and no one seems to be having a good time. I was actually talking to my brother, D-Rock, Damon Robinson, for those of you who watch some of my other live streams, my brother who I've done Loki with, who I did WandaVision with, and hopefully we got some future ones we'll be doing as they come out. We were talking about this show, and, one of the things we were saying was that this show is very much, it goes from 0 to 60 real quick with things that happen. And him as a man, of course, he's saying, he was like, I really didn't think they'd make it so that the world goes to complete crap with women so quickly, right? Because isn't it, he even joked, he's like, isn't it supposed to be that the women will do better? And it just seems like, basically you have a lot of the same kind of characters that we see in dystopian shows, but they're played by women in this regard. And I do feel that when it comes to this show. And I really, that when he said that, I was like, you're right. And I don't know if that's really the best way of going about this, because yeah, you're going to have villains. Everyone's not going to be nice. Everyone's not going to be nice, even if it's all women, because that's, honestly, that's just, a generalizations of what gender does, in the sense of, everyone's supposed to be, women are going to be so much better in being women, and because, they're just going to be more peaceful and stuff like that. Well, we know that's not even the case right now, right? If that was the case, only men would be the only ones committing crimes and things like that. And we know that's not the case. I mean, how many stories have we seen, true crime and all of that? There are some bad apples out there. So it's not just, although our system currently, not to get super deep, but our system currently does encourage more so toxic masculinity more than toxic femininity or whatever, right? So with that said, though, I do think this show has fallen into kind of at times being a dystopian show where you have a lot of the same kind of characters that you see in dystopian shows that have all the genders and sexes, but they're just happen to be all played by men, all by women in this one. And that at times is not really my jam, because I think you would think it'd be just a little bit more creative than that. But it's not like it's not well acted and there's not some cool things happening. It's just you have to start wondering if a lot of these twists and turns are things that we've seen already in other dystopian flicks. And it shouldn't just be the idea of, oh, it's all women, that's the difference. It should be, okay, it's all women. What makes that different? What do you add to that? What do you put in here that changes the dynamic so it's not just the same thing, just all women doing it, right? And I don't know if the show has really found its footing in that just yet, because it seems to be doing paint by the numbers, very similar things that we've kind of seen, or I've seen in other dystopian type shows and movies, right? So that's kind of overall my feelings about the show thus far. But maybe that might change. Okay, so in terms of these past 2 episodes, so overall my grade for this season so far is still like a B-, maybe a C, because it's really just not drawing me in. But like so far, it's like, okay, it's all right. It's all right. This show's all right so far. I think it could be better. I think they're doing a little too much of paint by numbers dystopian stuff where good people, bad people, gray people, and they all just happen to be played by women. I think they could be a lot more innovative than that. Okay, so what we have going on, some of the major things that happen, I just kind of want to touch on the major things that happen in these past 2 episodes. Very interesting titles that they have for the episodes. I always think that funny, which is like, what was episode 6? It was like Weird Al is dead, or rest in peace Weird Al. And the other one was My Mother Saw a Monkey for episode 7. So interesting. Okay, so basically, in episode 6, just to kind of talk briefly about that, what we got was a little bit more into the group of women that Hiro, Sam, and Nora and Mackenzie had come across in the previous episode. So in the previous episode before the last one, and what that was about. So it's pretty clear that they have stumbled across a cult. This is a cult. I mean, it's only been a couple of months, and this is the other thing too. I'm like, maybe if they had done a time jump of like a year, I could believe that all this stuff was happening the way it was. But the fact that it's only been a couple of months and some of this stuff is going down, I'm kind of like, really? Okay, but there's a cult. And for those who have read the comic books, that this cult leader that we have, Roxanne, is somewhat similar, or maybe taking the role of the character of this kind of cult that we got in the comic book, who was named Victoria. Victoria was a bit different though. That was like a man-hating cult. They just hated all men, just like that. And this one is a little bit more subtle, right? It's a little bit more using logic and feelings and stuff, but still manipulation tactics. That's definitely what's going on here. So what we got was kind of a look into that. Hiro pretty much confesses that she killed a man to Roxanne. Hiro seems to be kind of warming up to this cult. Sam is basically weirded out by them, especially with the rebirthing thing. It's like, what's going on here? What are you guys on about? And Nora seems to be in the middle a little bit, but also kind of like, Nora's gonna do Nora, which is she's self-serving, but more so it's like, I need to do what I need to do to survive, and Hiro is still very much self-centered. And so she's very much focusing in on self. And, this is a place where she seems to be receptive to, for reasons. And so we kind of got to look into that. We also saw just, what was going on with all of that there. And then we got partly in that episode a little bit, but it was more so focused on the call, but a little bit with the whole thing, of course, with Agent 355 and Yorick and stuff, and a little bit of the, we see that Agent 355 is having more sleepwalking issues. Her and Yorick have got kind of come to a truce understanding, but not really. And Dr. Mann, she basically, Allison, she basically kind of uses this to her advantage to say, let's ditch her and let's just go to San Francisco for reasons. Because she doesn't seem to be feeling Agent 355. Rightly so, because Agent 355 is not the most honest person. We saw what she did the previous episode where she basically like broke the phone. She cut off communication. Like she went rogue real freaking quick. She went rogue. And it was like, what are you doing? I like Agent 355 because I love the idea of a Black woman character in a I guess it's science fiction. Right now it's kind of drama, but in this kind of show who's very gray, where you don't know if she's really good, if she's really bad, or maybe she's just complex. And, sometimes that's not always given. So I'm appreciating it, but she is a little frustrating sometimes. But Yorick is frustrating too. Match made in heaven. I don't know if I ship that just yet, but there's definitely a dynamic there. And then we also got a little bit more with Christine and her pregnancy. And I kind of called it where I was saying where, her finding out she was pregnant wasn't like some cause of joy, because she was also thinking, do I even want this kid? Right. And that's interesting. At a time like this, having to deal with the question of choice, right? Choice right now in our society is not debatable. It shouldn't be debatable. A woman's choice is her choice. But in certain states, it is, them acting like Roe v. Wade didn't happen or something. And for whatever reason, that's a thing. And it's interesting, because I think many of us who are like, pro-choice in that regard and pro-life of the woman, I like to kind of turn that on its head, right? In dystopian times, though, the question is, would we still be thinking the same? Or would we think that Christine is being a bit selfish, right? Is Christine being selfish? And let me know in the chat, y'all, and in the replay, do you think Christine is being a little selfish with this, in the fact that she's thinking she might not want to keep this child and things when so many people have lost their children? I still think she's fine. I still think it's totally her choice. I think I'm leaning towards the fact that it's her choice. Why would she want to bring a child in a dystopian world? Like, what kind of life could she lead? But it's also kind of interesting because it's like, it might be for the greater good, right? It's a very interesting question the show kind of makes you have to grapple with on whether or not you side with her in this kind of extreme circumstance. So I did think that's a good thing they're kind of doing with Christine. And I'm just going to kind of flow into episode 7, where we had it where, we saw a little bit more of the dynamic of what's going on with Regina and Kimberly and their kind of pack. Regina, as I like to think of this character as kind of the Marjorie Taylor Greene of the show, right? Kimberly being more of the Meghan McCain kind of character. And so, we have a little bit more of their dynamic and stuff like that. And Marla, Kimberly's mom, and the former first lady meets a tragic end, right? It seems like in this episode, everybody's kind of discovering that Yorick is a man, an actual Y chromosome carrying man. And the walls are closing in on Jennifer in that regard. She's kind of having to do a lot. And I do worry that because she's having to do so much lying, that she may even have the people that are on her side kind of turn against her if they figure out that she was keeping that from them. Because she only told Christine. No one else was told. And that may, if it's exposed, it may put her in jeopardy for the cabinet that is behind her to not want to stay behind her and thinking, wow, you kept us out in the dark about this, right? But what we have is, Yorick is spotted by the soldiers that Jennifer and them had sent to get Agent 355. Agent 355 is still kind of mad at Yorick and Dr. Mann for attempting to leave her, but they end up in a women's prison, that kind of broke out, and they seem cool so far in a way. Yorick is flirting with one of the girls, Sonya, and all this other stuff, Sonja, and everything. And we also find about Agent 355's backstory. We find out that she lost her family when she was 12 in a car accident. She has some, flashbacks to that and things of that nature. So it's kind of good that we're getting a little bit more about her. I don't know if it's the best place right now. It just seems, I'm not saying it seems uneven, but it's also kind of like, okay, now's the time for the backstory. Cool. I guess we got time. This show drags it out. What else are we going to do, right? It's the dystopian future. What else do we have time for? It's not like there's aliens or zombies coming out of the sky or anything at us. So what we have is the drama, and that's an interpersonal drama. So we got a bit more about Agent 355. Now we also know Regina and them know about Yorick as well. But they need proof. They don't have proof. All they have is accusation because, if they come to Jennifer about it, she's just going to be like, you're out of your rocker. And then because Marla killed herself, they don't even have the eyewitness to kind of be like, she saw it. All they have is hearsay at this point. So that kind of works against them. And this also leaves kind of a gray area because you kind of have to wonder what's Jennifer's deal. I mean, in the beginning, I kind of understood why she didn't tell the rest of the cabinet about Yorick because they wanted to figure things out. More so because they were afraid that if everyone else outside of the building found out that her son was fine, that they may think it was a conspiracy theory, but that wouldn't have made sense, right? Because if it was a conspiracy theory of the government, then all the men in the world would have died except the men and their families in government. So thinking about it now, at first, when they first kind of made her make that decision because of that, I was kind of like, yeah, that makes sense. But thinking about it a little bit more, I'm like, no, it doesn't make sense. Because it's like, yes, conspiracy, first and foremost, there's no debating with conspiracy theorists. They're going to think what they want to think no matter what. Logic isn't the thing. But you got that middle ground people who, they take in some information, but then you tell them, okay, but if it was really a conspiracy, wouldn't all of the men, wouldn't the president still be good? Wouldn't it just be all like working class men and boys? Why would it be all of us except my one kid? Why not everybody else's children? I alone have been trying to, make the world destitute. Doesn't make much sense. So part of me is kind of like, I'm thinking maybe I'm kind of hoping that they don't prolong this out where Yorick's kind of like a hidden secret. At some point, it's starting not to make that much sense. But at the same time, they kind of have to because unless they're trying to switch it up completely. I think a lot of the comic book had him partly following Yorick and Agent 355 and stuff around the country as they went on adventures to like figure stuff out. So if he's figured out early on, they can't really do that. So I see why they're drawing it out. But when they kind of play with people finding out bit by bit, it's kind of like, well, why is he still on the, like, what's the point of that then? Right. So, I'm interested to see where this is going because I can't remember how many episodes we're supposed to get this season. My guess is it's probably like 10 to 12 tops. It's usually 10 to 13 when it comes to these kind of, shows and stuff. So I don't know. I don't know how long they can draw it out that nobody else, that there's not a lot of people that know about Yorick. I don't see everyone in the world finding out about him, but I think eventually at least the people in the Pentagon have to find out about him. And then, we also find out that Beth is still alive. Beth is alive, and I'm going to call it now. I think she's a double agent. I think it's a little weird. I think she might be working for someone who's not necessarily on the government side. She was acting a little bit, from what I saw, she was acting a bit suspect, a little bit sus. And so I'd be curious about that. And if her and Yorick are going to have a reunion. I don't think they were really in love. I don't think Yorick and Beth were in love at all. I don't ship that or what. I don't think I have a ship on this show, to be honest. I don't think they were in love at all, but I do think there's drama there in terms of what she's become in the last couple of months, depending on, what she was really up to all that time, right? In the months that she was away and how she just suddenly showed up and then left and everything, because she left and it was like, why didn't she stay? Why'd she leave? Maybe she got in to get some intel. So, yeah. So overall, this is something. They're making choices. I'm I'm sticking with it, you know, knock on wood, because I'm curious to see where it goes. But I'm also kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of reading like a regular dystopian regular dystopian thing that just happens to have a whole bunch of women playing the roles, which is also good in to itself, right? Like that can be cool. That's awesome. But I feel like if you're going to do that, you should make it a little bit more unique, because of the fact that you have it being women. Although, you know, the whole thing with the cult kind of took it from a different perspective of why women would be to the point where they are, in their lives. We do know domestic violence and femicide is a thing. Femicide is a thing, aka women being killed. 1 in 4 women are killed by their partners, right? 1 in 4. That's a lot. That's a lot. So points are being made in this series for sure. I just worry, or I'm concerned that it's so dreary that people might not get the points because they're too busy focusing on how slow it feels at times. So, but yeah, overall, those are my thoughts of episode 6 and 7 of Y: The Last Man. Let me know your thoughts. What are you feeling? Do you agree with some of the points I made about the show? Do you think it's kind of playing by the numbers of other dystopian sci-fi stuff you've seen before, or do you think this is totally new and you don't know what you're talking about, Chauncey? This is awesome. Fine, let me know. I'm always curious. But thank you all for joining, and till next time, you know, stay creepy out there, watch some great stories, read some great stories, and stay safe. Talk to you next time.